regarding juice fasting and water fasting. Right now, I'm on day 15 of a green juice fast. So the question I guess our audience would like to know is, how can or should they incorporate green juice fasting or water fasting into their life? How often should someone do it? Is it safe to do alone? What's the benefit? Is this something you should do once a month, once a year? Tell us what we should know about fasting, ideally from someone's home. So not everyone can make it to a fasting retreat. What is the best way to get the benefits of either green juice fasting or water fasting? How often, when, what wisdom, how can we benefit from fasting, and what is the benefits?
Okay, I'll jump at that one first. We've been doing 4 or 5 a year. I really recommend 4 a year for people who are sincerely interested in their health and doing them at the changes of the seasons. So, for example, we just did one at the equinox, or really the equilux, the equal day and night. That's we surround for those 3 weeks of cleansing that time of the change of the seasons. That one's a particularly good one because it's spring. You're coming into spring. It's spring cleaning. And what we like to do is we like to get that first week where you bring your calories down. We get them on raw food. We try to get them on one solid meal a day that first week, and then bring the calories down through that first week. Second week, it's all liquids, and then you end up on green juices towards the end. I usually give people a break the first few days, but by the time we get to day like 5, 6, or 7, they got to be on the juices. They got to be on the green juices, things that are not rocking their blood sugar. That's a big and important part of prepping yourself for water fasting. Is you don't want to be suddenly spiking your blood sugar on day, say, 14 of a cleanse and day 7 on liquids. You want to have even blood sugar, and that's where the green juice comes in. Then we go to the water fast on the 3rd week. That pattern, I've worked that out over the years. Gabriel and I have done many fasts over the years, and we love it. I mean, he's doing it right now. It's a passion of love. It's a thing it's in your heart or your soul, and I love bringing people into it. It's so cool to see people on their first day of water fasting ever, and their second day ever. They thought they couldn't do it. Is it better to do it alone? Never, ever. It's always better together. It's always better together. I love doing fasts with people from all over the world. And I also love challenging myself on each fast, and that's what I recommend for people who are doing this 4 times a year, which we do. And that's, you've got to challenge yourself. So I'll just keep doing my normal work. I will not change anything. I'll just do the whole thing that I normally do, but no food or water, and very little water too. I like doing a lot of dry fasting, but you have to have some water. And again, that's for more advanced students. But the water fasting to me is when I just got to lay this out. It's such a great term. I just love this term. And it comes from the old books. You're on God's operating table. God is at work on you and fixing everything. And you're just getting sorted out your body, mind. You're getting sorted out your emotions. You're getting sorted out in your spirit. It's epic. So that's my 2 cents on fasting and cleansing 4 times a year if you're really serious.
Looks like we're going in order here. So next. I've been fasting since 1983. I started my first fast, which was a 40-day fast. I've explored different things. I've done a 21-day water fast, and looking at different things and seeing people who have done different kinds of fasts. I'm right now, we have to actually say, well, what is a minimum fast? Because people say, well, I did a 1-day fast or 3-day fast. So physiologically, we don't begin the process of autolysis, which is breaking down dead and dying cells and building new cells, really until the 2nd or 3rd day. Some people start at 10 hours or 24 to 48 hours. So for me, a minimum fast is 7 days. Now, how do I get there? It's the first few days, your body's changing its metabolism from carbohydrate metabolism. And then day 3 and 4 are very typical of more detox. And day 5 or 6, the toxins are coming out of the brain and everything's working better. So 7 days also helps, particularly the colon detox. which is in most people pretty toxic. So that's the first thing, just kind of looking at the fast, whether you're doing water or juice. Now there are advantages to both. And so I've combined it a little bit, and I do green juice half diluted. Like David pointed out, I don't do any fruit juice anymore. I mean, we learn because people's blood sugars were just all over the place. And so I dilute the juice in half. And that's a kind of the baseline that most people can do. Then people do a few days of water in the midst of all that if they choose. But fasting really, again, what David suggests is a detox physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And it's a way of deepening your connection with the divine. It's a way of reconnecting with your soul. That's a big issue today. So people, because of the way we're living, because everything's going on, people have gotten a little disconnected from their soul. So this is a way of reconnecting to your soul. It's also a way of reconnecting to meaning and value and purpose in your life. I call it sacred design. So I ask the question to people like, let's think about the sacred design. We have a society that takes us away from a lot of meaning and value. It's like, well, we're here to get in touch with our sacred design. Also, people are knocked out of their rhythms, normal rhythms. So fasting gives an opportunity to come back to your normal rhythms, your normal life rhythms. And believe it or not, it helps regrow your brain. It actually stimulates neuron hormones, growth hormones, and neural-derived factors that literally regrow your brain. Now, just as a point, most people's brains shrink about 4.4% a year. So fasting is one of the few things that actually grows your brain. That's actually really important, okay? And it turns on a lot of the hormones that rebuild your body, but particularly the brain is being very, very positive affected. Neuro-derived growth factor is another thing that happens. So many physiological changes are happening in a very good way. Obviously, you get rid of physical toxins, but we also focus on emotional, mental, and spiritual toxins. So in our fast, we call them spiritual fasts because we're meditating twice a day, and we're doing a variety of kind of sharing and talking, because doing it in community does make a difference. So those are some of the factors that we're really rebuilding a new body. Now, I'm just going to slip in something a little bit about COVID, because with fasting, and this isn't proven, but both the mRNA and the DNA do alter your chromosomes. They both are able to get in. I won't go through the whole story of how mRNA does it, but it gets in and it reprograms your DNA. Now, those are abnormal cells. In the process of fasting, we activate what I call apoptosis to destroy the abnormal cells and to activate the growth of healthy cells. So we have a process now that can actually help get rid of the abnormal cells that have come from the vaccine primarily, or from the COVID infection. That's actually really, really important, because we're rebuilding cells, but we're eliminating the unhealthy cells, and a COVID infected cell is unhealthy. So that's another important thing. Now, another thing that happens is that the COVID affects the brain. About a third of the people, either from the vaccination or from getting COVID, have disorganized brain function. and get cloudy and confused and so forth. And the fasting helps reactivate the normal neurotransmitters and literally help the brain come back to normal. So that's a little added extra in today's world. Also, fasting helps with longevity and general well-being. So those are just some of the insights into fasting that are good. Most people aren't thinking about fasting as a way of preventing or dealing with COVID, but it's not the treatment or cure. We're not making a claim like that. I'm just saying it helps eliminate the pathological cells that have been created and rebuild the new cells. So that's got to be good.
So when it comes to, from my perspective, when it comes to fasting, we don't do much like program fasting. Most people have a center or something like that. I do recommend when people do that, they have a physician follow them, because most people that I see are on prescription medications, right? And so it's something that to follow if someone's taking like blood pressure or thyroid or, or some kind of a blood sugar product to help reduce their diabetes. So it needs to be followed. But I'm not against fasting. We see wonderful results from fasting. From my perspective of all those kind of fasts, it's really it's resting the body, right? You're putting your body in the most anti-inflammatory state because you're not putting anything pro-inflammatory in, right? And also, as Gabriel said, it's like a spiritual cleanse, it's an emotional cleanse, yeah, because it's a challenge because we're so used to putting these things in our body, right? For all sorts of reasons, good or bad, right? Because everybody has vices and there's addictions and there's foods and there's things that we're craving like sugar or fats or salts or just bad foods, for example. And so it is a way to do a mental and spiritual cleanse. But I always like to have someone follow that because sometimes people can go. I think a lot of people want to go extreme. I'm always like start low, goes like build into that ability that you can do a fast, an appropriate fast that he's talking about or David's talking about. Or if you go to a program, then there's people that are following you, they're measuring it so that you're not, because a lot of people like to do these things at home. And I think you can do these things, but a lot of people want to just start tomorrow and they're like, oh, I heard he did a 21-day fast. You're not going to do that tomorrow, it's like, but you got to build into that. So I'm really like that. Well, one of the things that we do that's a different type of detoxification, we do panchakarma, and that's just the traditional Ayurvedic detox, and that's something that we specialize in our clinic. So it's a different way of that's the original, we call it one of the original detoxification systems of treatment Ayurvedically, and that's a specialty that we offer. That's a little bit of a different way, but it's like, how do we cleanse the tissues from head to toe, all the way in from a variety of techniques and procedures and practices. That's kind of where my training comes from. So I don't do much, so I can't speak. I do definitely recommend people trying fasting and doing it, but we like to do things a little bit more gently and a little bit like pushing things through the tissues and out of the body in a little bit more of a systematic way. But definitely, I think people should do some type of fasting multiple times a year. We do panchakarma, like the day was talking about, change of the seasons, right? So same thing, like the cleanses are always good at a time of a season change, and then that's where most people or most countries, there's some kind of holiday that's also a change of something. So I think historically we've been doing these things for in cultures all over. In America, we just haven't done that appropriately, and then we kind of force it. So I think if it becomes a practice, just like everything else, then that becomes part of your health regimen.
Can you just make sure that no one gets themselves into trouble? Because I don't want anyone to go on a 21-day water fast at home alone. So just give whatever disclaimer. What should we do to make sure that we heard your advice, but then no one misinterpreted it and does something that can get them in trouble?
Well, I think one thing is what was already said. What Pai said is that it's good to have someone following you with the fast. The classical way would be, an experienced health practitioner following you with the fast. That's probably the best thing, particularly if you're new at it. Generally, I recommend obviously working with, a professional who knows about these things, because there's a lot of things that can come up.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want people to be afraid of fasting, because people have been doing it for, maybe 5,000 years. It's the oldest health technique there is, period. It rebuilds two things: we're going to call it vital life force. That's what the Greeks talked about. It builds the vital life force, and that helps cleanse. That's the power behind the cleansing, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. Cleansing is the fasting activates the vital life force. The other thing it does, from the spiritual point of view, is it makes it easier for the Kundalini energies to move through the subtle channels, which we call nadis, the 72,000 nadis, the three main channels. So in our setting where people are getting the awakening of the Kundalini from the spiritual approaches we take it, it's a lot easier to awaken that spiritual energy when your nadis are not clogged up with junk food and meat, fish, chicken, the energies of death, and so forth and so on. So there's two then energies that get activated, vital life force and the Kundalini energy. And that's another reason why it's good to have a supervisor in some way. And it's also good, as David pointed out, to be in a social group so you have support as well. Those are just some of the kind of thoughts, but this is not new. Fasting is old, and it's reliable. And it's fun, because when you clear the toxins out of the brain, you start to get really, really happy and high, if you aren't that way already. If we're really living this lifestyle, we're happy all the time. You know, there's a spiritual joy happening all the time. We don't have to fast to do that, but at the same time, you do that. It does add to that joy. So we fast. I fast twice a year, moving till 3 times a year. I have done 6 times a year, explored, and everybody's body's a little different, but a minimum of 2, and like David was talking about, 4. I think that's very valid and very good as well. But often for people just to do 2, it's kind of an effort in their lives.